My name is Luna, and I'm 28 years old. The night of my birthday party was supposed to be perfect. I wore my favorite silver dress, the one that made me feel beautiful for once in my life. There were balloons everywhere, champagne glasses on every table, and all my friends had shown up to celebrate with me. But standing there in the middle of that crowded room, watching my sister Emily walk toward me with an envelope in her hand, I knew something terrible was about to happen. The smile on her face wasn't real. It was cold and sharp, like a knife hidden behind her teeth. The music had stopped playing. Everyone had gone quiet. All eyes were on us now, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. Emily held up the envelope, high enough for everyone to see. Her voice rang out clear and loud across the silent room. "Luna, I think it's time everyone knew the truth about you." My stomach twisted into knots. I looked over at my mother, standing right beside Emily. Mom wouldn't even look at me. She just stared down at her shoes like a coward. My father, Richard, stood in the corner with his arms crossed over his chest. His face was hard and cold, like he was made of stone. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear. But my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen in place, trapped in front of all these people who were about to watch me fall apart. Emily opened the envelope slowly, taking her sweet time, like she was enjoying every second of my fear. "These are DNA test results," she announced, waving the papers in the air. "And they prove that Luna isn't Dad's biological daughter." The room exploded. People gasped. Someone dropped their glass and it shattered on the floor. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. I felt like the ground had opened up beneath my feet and I was falling into darkness. My best friend Sarah grabbed my arm, her eyes wide with shock. But I couldn't look at her. I couldn't look at anyone. All I could see was Emily's satisfied smirk and my mother's guilty face. But here's what they didn't know. Here's what none of them expected. I had been waiting for this moment. Not tonight, not at my birthday party, but I had known for weeks that something was coming. I had seen the secret meetings between Emily and Mom. I had heard the whispered phone calls that stopped the second I walked into the room. And I had done something about it. I had dug up secrets of my own. Secrets that would turn this whole nightmare upside down. So even though I was standing there with tears burning in my eyes and my entire world crashing down around me, there was a small part of me that was ready to fight back. They wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone I loved. They wanted to destroy me. But what they didn't realize was that I had already prepared for war. And I wasn't going down without taking them with me. Let me take you back 3 months before that nightmare of a birthday party. That's when my world started crumbling piece by piece, and I didn't even see it coming. I need you to understand something about my family first. I was always the black sheep, the one who never quite fit in. Emily was everything my parents wanted in a daughter. She got straight A's in school, became a lawyer just like Dad wanted, married a successful banker named Marcus, and lived in a picture-perfect house in the suburbs. Me? I was the disappointment. I dropped out of law school in my second year because I couldn't breathe in those lecture halls anymore. I wanted to be a photographer, to capture real moments and real emotions, not sit in courtrooms arguing over contracts. My parents looked at me like I had betrayed them. My father stopped talking to me for 6 months. My mother would sigh every time someone asked what I did for a living, like my career was something shameful she had to apologize for. But even with all that tension, even with all the judgment and the cold shoulders, I still believed we were family. I thought that at the end of the day, blood meant something. I thought they loved me, even if they didn't understand me. God, I was so stupid. One night in late August, I came home early from a photo shoot. The wedding I was supposed to cover got canceled at the last minute. So I drove back to my parents' house where I was still living, trying to save money for my own place. I walked through the front door and heard voices coming from the kitchen. Mom and Emily. I was about to call out to them when I heard my name, and something in Emily's tone made me stop cold in the hallway. "We need to tell her eventually," Mom said, her voice tired and heavy. There was a long pause, and then Emily laughed. Actually laughed. It was a cruel sound that made my skin crawl. "Why would we tell her?" Emily said. "She's been living off Dad's money her whole life." "Mom, If she finds out she's not really his daughter, she'll lose everything. No inheritance, no family name, nothing. My heart stopped beating. I pressed my back against the hallway wall, my hands shaking so badly I had to clench them into fists. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of sick joke. The DNA test I found in Dad's office drawer proves it, Emily continued, and I could hear the satisfaction in her voice. You had an affair, Mom. Luna isn't his biological daughter. And honestly, I'm relieved. I'm tired of pretending she's my real sister. She's always been different, always been weird. Now, at least we know why. I didn't wait to hear my mother's response. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt like someone was sitting on it, crushing all the air out of my lungs. I turned around and walked out of that house as quietly as I had entered. I got in my car and drove 4 hours, not knowing where I was going, not caring. Tears poured down my face so fast I could barely see the road. I ended up parked at a beach 2 hours away, sitting in my car as the sun set over the ocean, sobbing until I had nothing left inside me. Everything I thought I knew about myself, about my family, about my entire life had just been ripped away in a single conversation. And the worst part? The absolute worst part was knowing that they had been planning to keep this from me. They were going to let me live my whole life as a lie. For 3 weeks after that night, I walked around like a ghost. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. Every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a stranger staring back at me. I kept thinking about all the times my father, Richard, had looked at me with disappointment in his eyes. All the times he compared me to Emily and found me lacking. Now I understood why. I wasn't his. I was a constant reminder of my mother's betrayal. Living under his roof, carrying his name but never truly belonging to him. The pain of that realization was unbearable. But I needed answers. I needed to know the truth, not just the cruel version Emily had thrown around in that kitchen. So I started searching through everything I could find in that house. I waited until everyone was out and I went through old photo albums, boxes in the attic, drawers that hadn't been opened in years. I was looking for something, anything, that would tell me who I really was. And then I found it. Hidden in the back of my mother's jewelry box, underneath her pearls and diamond earrings, there was an old envelope. The paper was yellowed with age and my hands trembled as I pulled out the letter inside. It was dated 29 years ago, just a few months after I was born. The handwriting was neat and careful, written by someone who had taken their time with every word. It started with "My dearest Catherine," and it was signed at the bottom by a man named Thomas Reed. I sat on my mother's bedroom floor and read that letter 5 times. Tears streaming down my face because every word felt like a piece of my soul clicking into place. Thomas. Reed wasn't just some random affair or one-night mistake. He was my mother's first love, her first everything. They had grown up together in a small town upstate. They were engaged to be married when they were just 22 years old. But Thomas came from a working-class family. His father was a carpenter, his mother a school teacher. They didn't have money or status or the kind of connections my mother's parents valued. My grandparents forbade the marriage. They told my mother she was throwing her life away on a poor man with no future. They introduced her to Richard Bennett, a rising young lawyer from a wealthy family, and they pressured her until she broke. She called off her engagement to Thomas and married Richard 6 months later. But she never stopped loving Thomas. The letter made that heartbreakingly clear. Thomas had found out about my birth through a mutual friend. He wrote to my mother, begging her to tell him the truth. Was I his daughter? The letter was desperate and raw, full of a pain that jumped off the page even after all these years. He wrote that he had never stopped loving her, that he thought about her every single day, that finding out she might have had his child was both the most beautiful and most devastating thing he had ever learned. He pleaded with her to let him be part of my life. He didn't care about Richard or the marriage or what society would think. He just wanted to know his daughter. He wanted to hold me, to watch me grow up, to be my father. My mother had kept that letter for 29 years, hidden like a secret shame. And as I sat there crying on her bedroom floor, I realized something that changed everything. She had made her choice. She chose money and comfort and a respectable marriage over love. She chose Richard's last name and his bank account over the man who truly loved her. And worst of all, she chose to keep me from my real father, the man who had wanted me from the very beginning. But that letter wasn't the only thing I found in my mother's jewelry box. Underneath it, folded into a small leather pouch I almost missed, were bank statements. Dozens of them going back 28 years. My hands were still shaking from reading Thomas's letter when I opened the first statement. And what I saw made my blood run cold. Every single month for 28 years there had been a deposit. The account was in my mother's name, but the transfers came from Thomas Reed. $500 a month. Month after month after month. I did the math in my head and felt sick. Over $160,000? Money that was meant for me. Money my biological father had sent to support the daughter he wasn't allowed to see, and my mother had kept every penny. She had hidden this account from everyone. From Richard, from Emily, and especially from me. I sat there on that bedroom floor surrounded by bank statements, and something inside me broke open. Not sadness this time. Anger, pure burning rage that started in my chest and spread through my whole body like fire. This woman had stolen from me. She had taken my father away from me, taken his money, taken 28 years of a relationship I should have had. And she had done it all while making me feel like I was the problem. Like I was the daughter who never measured up. Like I was somehow less than Emily. All those years of feeling like an outsider. Like I didn't belong. Like something was wrong with me. And it was all because of her lies. I put everything back exactly as I had found it. But I took pictures of every single document with my phone. Then I started digging deeper. I hired a private investigator with money I had saved from photography jobs. I needed to know everything. Within a week, she came back with a full report on Thomas Reed. He lived 3 hours away in a small town called Riverside. He owned a construction company, nothing fancy but successful enough. He had never married, never had other children. My investigator told me that according to people who knew him, he was a good man, quiet and kind. Someone who kept to himself, but was always willing to help his neighbors. She also told me something that made my heart ache. Every year on my birthday, Thomas would take the day off work. He would drive to the city, to the park near where my mother lived, and he would sit on a bench for hours, just sitting there, hoping, maybe, for a glimpse of me. 20-8 birthdays. 28 years of a father loving a daughter he had never been allowed to meet. I cried so hard that night I thought I would never stop. But somewhere in the middle of all that pain, a plan started forming in my mind. Emily wanted to expose me at my birthday party. She wanted to humiliate me in front of everyone, to prove once and for all that I didn't belong in this family. Fine, let her try, because I had something she didn't expect. I had the truth. I had evidence of Mom's lies and her theft. And most importantly, I had found Thomas Reed, my real father, the man who had been searching for me, his whole life while I've been living with people who saw me as nothing but a burden and a secret to be hidden. I picked up my phone with trembling fingers and dialed the number my investigator had given me. It rang 3 times, and then I heard his voice for the first time. Hello, deep and warm, cautious but kind. I closed my eyes and took a breath that felt like jumping off a cliff. Mr. Reed, my name is Luna Bennett. I think you knew my mother a long time ago, Catherine? The silence on the other end of the phone lasted so long I thought he had hung up. Then I heard him take a sharp, shaky breath, like someone had just punched him in the stomach. Luna. His voice cracked on my name, and I heard 28 years of hope and heartbreak in that single word. Yes, I whispered, tears already streaming down my face. It's me. He made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Oh my God, Luna. I've been waiting my entire life for this call. We talked for 4 hours that first night. I sat in my car in an empty parking lot because I couldn't risk anyone at home hearing this conversation. Thomas told me everything, and with every word, I felt like I was finally understanding who I was supposed to be. He told me about falling in love with my mother when they were just teenagers, How she was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen, with wild curly hair and a laugh that could light up a whole room. How they used to sneak out at midnight and drive to the lake, lying on the hood of his old truck and counting stars. How he worked 3 jobs to save up for an engagement ring, a tiny diamond that took him 2 years to afford. How he proposed to her on her 22nd birthday, and she said yes while crying happy tears. He told me about the day her parents found out. How they called him trash, said he would never be good enough for their daughter, that he would drag her down into poverty and ruin her life. How they threatened to cut Catherine off completely if she married him. And how 3 months later she came to his apartment and gave him back the ring with shaking hands, saying she couldn't do it anymore, that she was sorry, that she had to think about her future. I was destroyed, Thomas said quietly. I loved her more than anything in this world, and she chose money over me. I left town because I couldn't stand seeing her with Richard. But then, 2 years later, a friend told me Catherine had a baby girl. I did the math, Luna. I knew there was a chance you might be mine. His voice broke again. I wrote to her. I begged her to tell me the truth. She finally called me one night very late, and she was crying. She told me yes, you were mine. But she said I could never be part of your life. Richard didn't know. And if I tried to claim you, it would destroy everything. She said you deserved stability and a good education and all the things Richard's money could provide. She made me promise to stay away. I was sobbing now, barely able to breathe. But you sent money, I managed to say. Every month for 28 years. Of course I did, he said fiercely. You're my daughter. I couldn't hold you or watch you grow up or teach you to ride a bike or walk you to your first day of school. But I could make sure you had what you needed. Catherine promised she would put it toward your future, your education, things that would help you build a good life. My stomach twisted. She kept it all, Thomas. She hid it in a secret account. I never saw a single dollar. The silence that followed was deafening. When he finally spoke, his voice was hard in a way I hadn't heard before. She kept it. All of it. Over $160,000. He let out a long, shaky breath. That woman, he said slowly, took everything from both of us. I know, I whispered. And now my sister is planning to expose me at my birthday party in 2 weeks. She wants to humiliate me in front of everyone by revealing I'm not Richard's daughter. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. What if I was there? My heart stopped. What? What if I came to your party, Luna? What if we turned their cruelty into the moment you finally got to meet your real father? So there I stood in my silver dress in the middle of my own birthday party, watching Emily destroy me in front of 75 people. She held those DNA results high like a trophy. Her voice dripping with fake concern as she told everyone that I wasn't really a Bennett. That I was a lie, a fraud, someone who had been living off their family name my whole life without deserving it. I watched my mother's face crumble with guilt she was too cowardly to admit. I watched Richard stand there with his arms crossed, silent and condemning, like I was something dirty he had been forced to tolerate all these years. And I watched my friends' faces fill with shock and pity, which somehow hurt worse than anything else. But then I took a deep breath and felt the weight of my phone in my pocket. I thought about Thomas waiting outside in the parking lot like we had planned, watching the time, ready to walk in when I gave him the signal. I thought about all those bank statements, all that stolen money, all those years of lies. And I felt something shift inside me. The fear drained away, replaced by a calm, cold clarity. Emily wanted a show. Fine. I would give her one she would never forget. You're right, I said loudly, cutting through the whispers that had filled the room. Everyone went silent. Emily's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't expected me to agree with her. Those DNA results are real. Richard Bennett is not my biological father. I looked right at my mother, whose face had gone white as paper. But what Emily conveniently forgot to mention is why. Mom, do you want to tell everyone about Thomas Reed? Or should I? My mother's hands started shaking. She looked like she might faint. Luna, please, she whispered. but I was done protecting her feelings. Thomas Reed was Mom's first love, I said to the room. They were engaged to be married before Grandma and Grandpa decided he wasn't good enough because he didn't have money. So they forced her to marry Richard instead, even though she was already pregnant with me. The gasps that went through the crowd were even louder this time. Emily's face had gone from triumphant to confused. But here's the part that makes this really interesting. I continued pulling out my phone. My hands were steady now, powered by pure adrenaline and rage. For 28 years, my biological father has been sending money to support me. $500 every single month. Mom told him it would go toward my education and my future. I looked directly at my mother, except she kept every penny in a secret account. Over $160,000 that was meant for me, hidden away where no one would ever find it. The room erupted. People were shouting questions, pulling out their phones, staring at my mother with disgust. Emily grabbed Mom's arm, her face twisted in confusion and anger. "Is that true?" she demanded. My mother couldn't speak. She just stood there, tears running down her face, caught in a web of lies that was finally collapsing around her. Richard looked like he had been hit by a truck, staring at his wife with an expression I couldn't quite read. And that's when I sent the text message. 3 simple words to Thomas. "Come in now." I watched the door at the back of the room, and 30 seconds later it opened. A tall man with graying hair and kind eyes walked in, and the entire room turned to stare. He was wearing a simple suit, nothing fancy, but he carried himself with quiet dignity. And when his eyes found mine across that crowded room, I saw tears streaming down his face. "Everyone," I said, my voice breaking for the first time, "I'd like you to meet my father. My real father. Thomas Reed." The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Thomas walked toward me slowly, like he was afraid I might disappear if he moved too fast, and I felt my legs carrying me toward him. We met in the middle of that room, and when he wrapped his arms around me, I broke down completely. 28 years of longing, of not belonging, of feeling like something was wrong with me, all of it shattered in that embrace. "I've got you," he whispered into my hair, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm here now, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere ever again."